what we're going to bring up now as we continue our fight, or rather our close-up on the fight for the presidency. Alan Kelly, founder, CEO of Playmaker Systems, as we talk about the plays to win, and joins us. Thank you once again for venturing into the studio today.
Happy Friday, Tim.
Were you hit by the storm at all, by the way? Lost power, anything like that?
We were okay. I think Washington generally was spared.
A lot more than we thought. I mean, we
Yes.
had some pretty nasty weather for a while, and we had some flooding, and there were some people who were in danger, but compared to what New York and New Jersey got, it was we could have been a lot worse, and we didn't get it. And now there's another one on the way, evidently. So I'm sorry. I have to be in my interest as a news person. But the question I had, and we talked a little bit about it sort of via the cell phone and text messaging and stuff, Alan and I did, because one of the striking parts of this week was the message being delivered by Governor Chris Christie of New Jersey.
I have to say the administration, the president himself, and FEMA Administrator Craig Fugate have been outstanding with us so far. We have a great partnership with them, and I want to thank the president personally for his personal attention to this.
All right, so is this a play, Alan Kelly, or is
Mitt
this
Romney,
is this just? I'm Chris
Mitt
Christie.
Romney has to be doing two things. He has to, at that point, he has to be searching for a roll of duct tape to put around the governor's mouth. And he has to be wondering, is Christie in the running for a cabinet post from me or from Obama?
Now, come on. He's running for re-election in 2013 now.
Well, I think there's calculus there. And
really?
These are things that Christie didn't need to say. I mean, he needed to be proper. He needed to be appropriate. Listening to Thad Allen a little while ago, he talks about unity of effort. Mm-hmm. That's what those two had to focus on. They both had rights and reasons to be on the Jersey Shore, looking at the devastation. So they had to sort of wriggle together and figure out a good position. But they didn't necessarily need to congratulate each other and effuse like the way Christie did. Mm-hmm. That was over the top. And from the perspective of a conservative or a GOP operative, it was way past the point of his boundaries as an enlisted surrogate. He was way off the reservation.
Yeah, I mean, to your point, it was followed up.
You could give a damn about the politics of things. I could care less today about it. And so the President of the United States came and offered help for the people that I'm sworn to represent. And I accept his help and I accept his goodwill.
Okay, so?
Yeah, that one was a little bit more temperate.
Yeah.
But even so, you have to really sit back and say, now, why would he really say that?
I'm wondering, and I'll just throw this out there because, there's actually the Associated Press is rolling with a story today about whether or not Republicans are in a long-term bad situation because as we see an increasing Hispanic population in this country, and I know we got an election 4 days, but people are always looking ahead anyway. They see the increase in the Latino population, and you see states like Florida and Texas, which have very large Hispanic populations. And as the Latino vote turns against Republicans, not so much in Florida, but certainly in Texas, you wonder, states with all those electoral votes, and all of a sudden you're talking about another 60 votes gone to Democrats. I mean, California is a lost cause for Republicans right now. So is New York. So maybe it's partly it's a calculus, and this is kind of an odd one, about a third-party candidacy at some point. Because he is not strictly in the Republican mode. And let's face it, he's the Republican governor of a blue state. And I just wonder if that may be, and that may or may not be he may just be out there saying, this is the place I love. I grew up. I love Jersey Shore. I love Bruce Springsteen. This is my home.
He's an unapologetic guy, but I think he cultivates that part of himself as his brand. And so I buy it. Mm-hmm. I would certainly.
Okay, you heard it here first. Idea. 2016, Chris Christie, independent. I don't know.
Tim Farley,
you
VP.
think? But you're writing about this, and by the way, Alan does blog too. Cabinet caliber Christie.
Yeah.
So you really? I mean, what would he be? The Secretary of New Jersey, Secretary of Springsteen, or
no? Mostly, I'm having fun.
Okay.
I'm a huge
idol
of Dana Milbank. And I like to. I think you have to sit back and think, oh my goodness, mm-hmm. Mitt Romney must be going crazy, mm-hmm. because he would like to shut him up. He would like to shut up Christie, of course.
Or turn down the temperature, maybe.
And Romney, at this point, he should have control of surrogates. Everyone should have control of each other's surrogates. But that really,
you can't have control of a surrogate in a situation like that, though. I mean, he's the governor of the state, which has just been devastated by a hurricane. You can't say, oh, by the way, be careful what you say.
But he doesn't need to go overboard.
I understand.
But you can't control that. Praise of the president.
Sure.
And And
You
I
and
think
Rush, you and Rush Limbaugh.
yeah, me and Rush Limbaugh. Yeah, let's see, what do we have in common? And
I'm kidding. Well, the odd thing about this too is, of course, he was the keynote speaker of the Republican convention. It's not just that he's a surrogate. It's like he was the guy that they chose to say, let's kick off this convention. And he was criticized for being a little bit too much about Governor Christie as opposed to being about Mitt Romney.
Yes, he was. Maybe he's saying to himself, it's not going to happen. Maybe he's saying to himself that I really should be thinking about 2016, and this is a great time for me to
or 2013.
Yeah,
he's running for re-election.
Maybe this is all about bipartisan. The next zeitgeist is going to be all about how we work together. So I'm going to be Mr. Straight Talk, but I'm going to be Mr. Nice Guy, and I'm going to walk around with the president. It was perfect if those were his intentions.
I want to ask you about Michael Brown, Alan Kelly, because Michael Brown, former head of FEMA, was
heck of a guy,
heck of a job, Brownie, from the 2005 Katrina disaster. He was actually on here the other day, and I had him on really because my thought was, we have lessons to be learned from these, whether they're done right or wrong, and they're done wrong in Katrina. He's written a book about it. He has blamed a lot of people and maybe not taken enough blame for himself. That said, I wanted to hear his take on things, whether it's a systemic or a personnel issue. Is it leadership, or are there other things at stake? And when I talked to Thad Allen, you mentioned that conversation, he did say, look, you have to do as much as you can to remove that personal component, to remove the dependence on strong individuals so that it's a system that will succeed regardless. And we all know that in certain circumstances, leadership will make the difference, whether you got an army of 50, 1,000, or 100,000. But that said, I was kind of curious about that. That was the reason I had him on. It was not to say, hey, by the way, criticize the president. Now, he did say something that he said was misinterpreted because he was being asked about the political calculus, whether or not the president moved too quickly. And he said he didn't. He thought the president moved too quickly. And what he was telling somebody, he said, was he moved too quickly in a political context, as he should have waited until later in the day before he moved ahead. It was not about. So what it was taken as is he was moving too quickly in trying to stem the tide of whatever disaster was taking place. And, of course, people immediately said, oh, this is a guy who waited days and days to do anything in New Orleans. It was just terrible. The point is, regardless of what his intent was when he spoke, and by the way, I asked him were the quotes wrong. Well, no, the quotes are correct, but that's not what I meant, which is always a pretty weak comeback. The point is, Michael Brown said something that, once again, was a distraction for Mitt Romney, because here comes a reminder of the previous administration. And that's your point, right?
Again, it speaks to lack of command and control. They should know absolutely not to have a Michael Brown anywhere near the media cycle right now, especially on a story like this.
That? I mean, he doesn't work for the campaign.
Ironically, this is what Republicans have historically been so good at up to, essentially the Obama era. It's the Republicans who have given a clinic on influence strategy. Who have had just such pristine control of message, of people, of agenda, but they don't have it in this case with Mitt Romney. It's noticeably lacking.
There was a great story in Politico about that the other day. That a fairly well-known Republican operative got in touch with the Romney campaign. They talked, and he started having conference calls with leadership. People like, for example, Haley Barbour, somebody who people pay a lot of attention. But they said, we're going to get you into these conference calls to get some real honest discussion about the campaign, but we're not going to put it on the record, and you got to not talk about it. That way you involve them in the process, but make sure they don't stray. But I guess they can't do that with everybody. I mean, Michael Brown's not a guy you would think of as consequential.
I think that it has to do with the sense of the sensibilities of the Republican Party and how willingly they line up behind their de facto leader, which is Mitt Romney. And to me, it speaks to the basic instability or the basic lack of alignment. Again, unity of effort is not there when it comes to this particular candidate at this particular time. And so people and ideas and messages go rogue when they normally really wouldn't or shouldn't.
There's a little bit of one of the plays here that you can explain a bit, a ping, because what we talk about with Alan is the plays. And this is, again, the periodic table of plays that are a part of strategy. And you were talking about global warming. Governor of New York, Andrew Cuomo, who was a Democrat, suggested by way of an overt ping, as you say. Anyone who says there's not a dramatic change in weather patterns, I think, is denying reality. So explain the use of a ping there and how it's effective.
Oh, a ping is a testing strategy. There's two of them. There's the trial balloon and the ping, and they're very much to the low engagement or the assessing-oriented side of this spectrum of 24 plays that we have. And this is a great opportunity. Sandy roars into town. And it is a perfect opportunity for Democrats who have absolutely, endorsed and supported and wanted to speak about global warming and environmental issues. It's a perfect symbol for them to hoist up. Now, to make sure that happens, they enable, and again, we're talking about surrogates. Mm-hmm. They enable them, or they brief them, or they tell them, but to go out and begin to run plays about that. So Andrew Cuomo runs a ping, which is it's not that subtle, but he's saying, I got to say, it could be a coincidence, could be not, but you know what? 2 in a year? Oh, for heaven's sakes. So he's raising his eyebrow at a very perfect time that will help to set the frame and the discussion toward a topic of the Democratic plank, which is very much in their favor. And then probably, I can't be sure, but probably in coordination with that, we've got 2 representatives standing up, calling on the House chairman of Energy, I can't recall right now, to put a global warming to the top of his agenda. Mm-hmm. So there's some very nice play calling going on there. They've got Cuomo, they've got reps, they've got everybody moving to say, let's not let the narrative and the media forget to use Sandy as a metaphor for global warming and to make the point the Republicans just don't have their act together. Mm.
We will see how that one plays out. Of course, 4 days from now and a week from now, we'll be able to talk about the best and the worst and the plays that won.
We will.
All that
Won't
kind
that
of
be
stuff.
exciting?
Playmakersystems.com. That's where you can go to the website. Alan Kelly, who tweets, what is it? Playmaker Alan?
At Playmaker Alan, A-L-A-N.
A-L-A-N, at Playmaker Alan. Alan, it's great, as always. Thanks.
Thank you. See you next week.
Talk to you next week, and we'll see exactly what we're talking about.